Hello, my friends. It's Luce here, and today I want to share a message that I know will touch your heart and bring peace to your spirit. Life can often feel overwhelming, can't it? Fear, uncertainty, and challenges have a way of creeping into our days, threatening to rob us of the joy and hope we so desperately need. But what if I told you that you don't have to face those fears alone? What if I told you that joy, real, unshakable joy, can fill your life, no matter what storms you're going through? That's what today's message is all about. You see, fear has a way of holding us captive. It whispers lies, magnifies our doubts, and makes us believe that we're not enough or that the future is too uncertain to hope for. But there's another voice, a voice that brings calm to our fears and replaces them with peace and joy. That voice is God's, and He is calling out to you today. He's saying, "Let me calm your fears. Let me fill your life with my joy." These are not just words, they are a promise, an invitation to experience something far greater than the chaos of this world. But let me ask you something, are you ready to let go of the fears that have been holding you back? Are you ready to step into a life that is filled with joy, no matter what challenges you face? This isn't just about positive thinking or trying to make yourself feel better. This is about tapping into a deeper truth, a divine promise that has the power to transform your heart and mind. Fear may come knocking, but it doesn't have to stay. Joy isn't just a fleeting feeling, it's a gift that can sustain you in every moment, even the difficult ones. Today, we're going to explore how to release those fears and open your heart to the joy that God wants to pour into your life. This isn't a message about ignoring reality or pretending that everything is fine when it's not. It's about finding peace and joy that go beyond your circumstances, rooted in the unchanging love and faithfulness of God. You were not created to live in fear, you were created to live in freedom, to walk in joy, and to experience the fullness of life that God has planned for you. So, if you've been carrying fear, anxiety, or doubt, I want to invite you to release them today. Open your heart, and let God's presence calm your fears. Let His joy fill every corner of your life. If you're ready for that, type Amen in the comments below as a declaration of your faith and your desire for His peace and joy. Together, let's step into this message with open hearts, ready to be transformed. Let's begin this journey to let fear go and welcome the joy that only God can bring. Fear is one of the most powerful forces that can take hold of our hearts and minds. It creeps in silently, often without us even realizing it, and before we know it, it begins to control our thoughts, influence our decisions, and cloud our perspective. Fear tells us that we are not enough, that the future is uncertain, and that our struggles are insurmountable. It feeds on our insecurities, magnifies our doubts, and whispers lies that keep us bound. But here's the truth, fear was never meant to be the defining force in your life. It is not your identity, and it does not have the final say. Today, I want to speak directly to those fears that have been weighing you down, keeping you stuck, and stealing your joy. Let me remind you that there is a way out, a way to rise above fear and step into the fullness of life that God has for you. Fear often stems from the unknown. As humans, we crave certainty, stability, and control. When we face situations that challenge those desires, fear begins to take root. It might be fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the future, or even fear of change. These fears can paralyze us, keeping us from stepping out in faith or embracing opportunities that could lead to growth and transformation. They can make us settle for less than what we were created for, convincing us that safety is more important than purpose. But let me ask you this. What would your life look like if fear no longer had a hold on you? What if you could wake up each day with a sense of peace and joy, knowing that no matter what lies ahead, you are secure? The good news is that this kind of life is possible. It begins with a shift in perspective, a decision to stop listening to the voice of fear and start listening to the voice of truth. Fear thrives on lies, but truth sets us free. The truth is that you are not alone, no matter how isolated fear makes you feel. You have a Creator who knows you, loves you, and walks with you through every storm. He sees your fears, your doubts, and your struggles, and he offers you his peace in exchange. This peace is not dependent on circumstances, it is a peace that surpasses understanding, a peace that comes from knowing that you are held by a love that never fails. One of the ways fear keeps us trapped is by convincing us that we have to face it alone. It isolates us, making us feel as though no one else understands what we're going through. But the truth is, you don't have to carry your fears by yourself. God is inviting you to lay them at his feet, to release the weight of your worries and trust him with the outcome. This is not always easy. It requires vulnerability, surrender, and a willingness to let go of the illusion of control. But in that surrender, there is freedom. When you let go of your fears and place them in God's hands, you make room for his peace to enter your heart. You begin to see that the things you were afraid of are not as big as they seemed, and that his strength is greater than any challenge you face. Another way fear holds us back is by stealing our joy. Fear and joy cannot coexist, because fear focuses on what could go wrong, while joy focuses on what is good and true. Fear makes us look at life through a lens of scarcity, convincing us that we don't have enough, that we are not enough, and that we will never be enough. But joy reminds us that we are already blessed, already loved, and already equipped to face whatever comes our way. Joy is not just an emotion, it is a choice, a posture of the heart that says, I will trust in God's goodness, even when I don't understand his plan. When we choose joy, we take back the power that fear tried to steal. We declare that our circumstances do not define us, and that our hope is in something greater than what we can see. To calm your fears and let joy fill your life, you must first identify the lies that fear has been feeding you. What are the thoughts that keep playing in your mind, the ones that make you feel small, inadequate, or unworthy? Write them down, and then hold them up against the truth of who God says you are. Replace the lies with truth, and let that truth take root in your heart. For example, if fear tells you that you are alone, remind yourself that you are never alone because God is always with you. If fear tells you that you are not good enough, remind yourself that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, created with purpose and value. Replacing lies with truth is not a one-time event, it is a daily practice, a discipline that strengthens your faith and weakens the grip of fear. In addition to replacing lies with truth, it's important to surround yourself with people who encourage and uplift you. Fear thrives in isolation, but it loses its power in the presence of community. Find friends, mentors, or a faith community who will speak life into you, who will remind you of your worth and walk with you through your struggles. Sometimes, just knowing that someone is standing with you can make all the difference. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help when you need it. There is no shame in admitting that you're struggling, in fact, it's a sign of strength. Together, we are stronger than fear, and together, we can overcome. Lastly, let me remind you of the power of gratitude in overcoming fear and cultivating joy. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have, from what's wrong to what's right. When you take time to reflect on the blessings in your life, no matter how small, you create space for joy to grow. Gratitude is not about ignoring your problems, it's about acknowledging that even in the midst of difficulties, there is still good to be found. Start each day by naming 3 things you're grateful for, and watch how your perspective begins to change. Gratitude has a way of quieting fear and filling your heart with peace, because it reminds you that you are cared for, provided for, and deeply loved. As I close this part of the message, I want to leave you with this: fear may be loud, but it is not invincible. It may try to hold you back, but it does not have to define you. You have the power to choose faith over fear, truth over lies, and joy over despair. God is inviting you to let go of the fears that have been weighing you down and to step into the freedom and joy that He has for you. Will you accept that invitation? Will you trust Him to calm your fears and fill your life with His joy? The choice is yours, and the time is now. Let's take this step together, knowing that we are not alone and that we are deeply loved by the one who holds our future in His hands. Joy is one of the most powerful gifts we can experience, yet for many of us, it feels elusive, like something just out of reach. Life's struggles, uncertainties, and the weight of fear often create barriers that keep joy at bay. Yet, joy is not meant to be a fleeting feeling or a rare occurrence. Joy is a gift, a state of being that is available to us regardless of our circumstances. When we allow God to calm our fears, we open the door for His joy to fill every corner of our lives. But to truly embrace this joy, we must first understand what it is and what it is not. Joy is not the absence of pain or difficulty, nor is it simply the presence of happiness. Joy is deeper than that. It is rooted in trust, sustained by hope, and anchored in the unchanging love of God. Fear often tricks us into believing that joy is unattainable, that it is reserved for certain moments or certain people. We may think, "I'll feel joy when my circumstances improve," or "I can't feel joy because I'm dealing with too much right now." But this perspective limits us and keeps us stuck in a cycle of waiting for external changes to dictate our internal state. The truth is that joy is not tied to what is happening around you, it is tied to what is happening within you. When you choose to trust God, even in the midst of uncertainty, you create space for joy to grow. This kind of joy is not dependent on everything going right, it thrives even in the midst of challenges because it is rooted in something unshakable, God's presence and His promises. One of the reasons we struggle to experience joy is because we often look for it in the wrong places. We think joy will come from success, possessions, or the approval of others. While these things may bring temporary happiness, they cannot sustain true joy. Joy is not something you can manufacture or earn, it is something you receive. It comes from aligning your heart with God's will and trusting in His provision. Think about a moment in your life when you felt a deep sense of peace and contentment, even if everything around you was uncertain. That moment was likely rooted in a connection with God, a sense that He was with you and that you were held by His love. That is the essence of joy, a confidence that no matter what happens, you are secure in Him. To let joy fill your life, you must be willing to release the things that block it. Fear, as we've already discussed, is one of the greatest obstacles to joy. But there are others as well. Resentment, envy, and a lack of gratitude can all create barriers that prevent us from fully experiencing the joy God wants to give us. Resentment keeps us focused on past hurts, robbing us of the ability to embrace the present. Envy shifts our attention to what others have, blinding us to the blessings in our own lives. A lack of gratitude creates a mindset of scarcity, convincing us that we don't have enough or that we are not enough. These attitudes may feel justified in the moment, but they only serve to keep us trapped in a cycle of dissatisfaction and discontent. The first step to experiencing joy is to acknowledge these barriers and bring them to God. Ask Him to help you release resentment, to replace envy with contentment, and to cultivate a heart of gratitude. This act of surrender is not just freeing, it is transformative. It allows you to shift your focus from what you lack to what you have, from what is wrong to what is right. Another key to embracing joy is learning to be present in the moment. Fear often pulls us into the future, filling our minds with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. At the same time, resentment or regret can keep us anchored in the past, replaying mistakes or disappointments. Joy, however, is found in the present. It is experienced in the here and now, in the simple, ordinary moments of life. When we are fully present, we become more aware of God's presence, and that awareness is the foundation of joy. Consider how often Jesus encouraged His followers to live with childlike faith. Children have an incredible ability to live in the moment, to find wonder and delight in the simplest things. This is not to say that we should ignore our responsibilities or avoid planning for the future, but rather that we should not let the weight of those things steal our ability to experience joy in the present. Each day is a gift, and when we approach it with gratitude and trust, we open ourselves to the joy that God wants to pour into our lives. Gratitude is a powerful practice that not only calms fears but also cultivates joy. When we take time to acknowledge and thank God for His blessings, we shift our focus from what we don't have to what we do have. Gratitude changes our perspective, helping us to see that even in difficult times, there is still good to be found. It reminds us that God is faithful, that He provides for our needs, and that His love is constant. A grateful heart is a joyful heart because it recognizes that everything we have is a gift from God. Start each day by listing 3 things you are grateful for, no matter how small they may seem. Maybe it's the warmth of the sun on your face, the sound of laughter, or the comfort of a loved one's presence. As you practice gratitude, you'll begin to see more and more reasons to be joyful, even in the midst of challenges. Another way to let joy fill your life is by serving others. When we focus on meeting the needs of those around us, we take the focus off of ourselves and our own fears. Serving others not only blesses them but also brings a sense of purpose and fulfillment that fuels joy. Think about a time when you went out of your way to help someone, whether it was through a kind word, a thoughtful gesture, or a generous act. Chances are, you felt a sense of joy and connection that went beyond the act itself. This is because serving others reflects the heart of God, and in doing so, we align ourselves with His purpose. Joy is not just something we receive, it is something we share. When we pour into others, we create a ripple effect of joy that touches lives in ways we may never fully understand. Finally, let me remind you of the importance of trusting in God's timing. Fear often comes from a desire to control, to know what's coming next, and to ensure that everything will work out according to our plans. But true joy comes from releasing that control and trusting that God's plans are better than anything we could imagine. Proverbs 3 verses 5-6 encourages us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, in all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. This kind of trust is not always easy, but it is essential for experiencing lasting joy. When we trust God, we can rest in the knowledge that He is working all things for our good, even when we can't see it. This trust allows us to let go of the fears and anxieties that weigh us down and to embrace the peace and joy that come from knowing we are in His hands. As we close this part of the message, I want to encourage you to take a moment to reflect on the barriers that may be keeping you from experiencing joy. Are there fears you need to release, resentments you need to let go of, or areas of your life where you need to cultivate gratitude? Bring those things to God, and invite Him to work in your heart. Joy is not something you have to chase, it is something you can receive right here, right now. It begins with a decision to trust Him, to let His love fill the places where fear once lived, and to embrace the gift of each day with a grateful and open heart. Let this be the moment when you say yes to joy, and let it transform your life in ways you never thought possible. Joy is one of the most misunderstood gifts that God offers. Too often, we equate joy with happiness, thinking that it depends on everything in our lives going perfectly. But joy is so much deeper than a fleeting emotion or a response to good circumstances. Joy is a state of being that flows from a heart connected to God. It is a strength that sustains us through trials, a light that shines in the darkest places, and a reminder that, no matter what we face, we are held by the unchanging love of our Creator. In this part of the message, I want to explore how we can live in that joy, even when life feels overwhelming, and how letting God calm our fears creates space for His joy to transform every area of our lives. Fear is often the first barrier to joy, and it's one that many of us wrestle with daily. Fear has a way of shrinking our world, making us focus on what might go wrong and robbing us of the ability to see what is good and right in front of us. It tells us that we are not safe, that the future is uncertain, and that we must protect ourselves at all costs. But fear is a liar. It thrives on deception, convincing us that we are alone and that we must carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. The truth is that we are never alone. God is with us, and He has promised to be our refuge and strength. When we allow Him to calm our fears, we free ourselves from the grip of anxiety and make room for joy to take its place. This is not an easy process, it requires trust, surrender, and a willingness to let go of the things we cannot control. But in that surrender, we find peace, and in that peace, we discover the joy that has been waiting for us all along. One of the most beautiful aspects of joy is that it is not dependent on circumstances. We live in a world that tells us we can only be happy when everything is going our way, when we have the job we want, the relationships we desire, or the success we've been striving for. But joy is not about what we have, it's about who we are and, more importantly, whose we are. When we anchor our identity in God, we begin to see that our joy is not tied to what happens to us but to the unchanging truth of His love and faithfulness. This is why Paul, writing from a prison cell, could say, "Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice." Paul's joy was not based on his circumstances but on his relationship with God. This kind of joy is available to all of us, but it requires a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on what we lack or what is wrong, we must choose to focus on God's goodness and His presence in our lives. This doesn't mean ignoring our struggles, it means choosing to see them through the lens of His grace and trusting that He is working all things for our good. Gratitude is one of the most powerful ways to cultivate joy. When we take the time to thank God for His blessings, no matter how small, we shift our focus from what we don't have to what we do. Gratitude reminds us of God's faithfulness and helps us see His hand in every area of our lives. It also opens our hearts to receive more of His joy because it teaches us to recognize His presence in the everyday moments. Start by writing down 3 things you're grateful for each day. They don't have to be big or dramatic, sometimes, it's the simplest things that bring the most joy. Maybe it's the warmth of the sun on your face, the laughter of a friend, or the quiet stillness of the morning. As you practice gratitude, you'll find that your perspective begins to change. You'll start to notice the beauty and goodness around you, even in the midst of challenges, and that awareness will fuel your joy. Another key to experiencing joy is learning to let go of comparison. In our hyper-connected world, it's easy to look at someone else's life and feel like we're falling short. Social media, for all its benefits, often amplifies this feeling, showing us curated highlights of other people's lives while we're acutely aware of our own struggles and imperfections. But comparison is a thief of joy. It shifts our focus from our blessings to what we think we lack and creates a sense of dissatisfaction that keeps us from fully embracing the life God has given us. The antidote to comparison is contentment, a deep-seated trust that God has given us exactly what we need for this season of our lives. Contentment doesn't mean settling for less or ignoring our desires, it means trusting that God's plan is better than anything we could imagine and choosing to be present and grateful for the here and now. Joy is also closely tied to community. God created us to live in relationship with one another, and there is a special kind of joy that comes from sharing life with others. Whether it's through deep conversations, shared laughter, or simply being present for one another, community reminds us that we are not alone. It also gives us opportunities to serve and encourage others, which can be one of the most joyful experiences of all. When we focus on lifting others up, we take the focus off of ourselves and our own fears. Serving others not only blesses them but also fills our hearts with a sense of purpose and connection that fuels joy. Look for ways to be a source of joy to those around you, whether it's through a kind word, a thoughtful gesture, or simply showing up when someone needs you. As you pour into others, you'll find that joy multiplies, creating a ripple effect that touches everyone around you. Lastly, I want to talk about the role of trust in cultivating joy. Fear often stems from a lack of trust in ourselves, in others, and ultimately in God. When we try to control everything or when we doubt that God's plans are good, we create space for fear and anxiety to grow. But when we choose to trust Him, even when we don't understand, we open the door for joy to enter. Trusting God doesn't mean everything will be easy or that we won't face challenges. It means believing that He is with us in those challenges and that He is working all things for our good. It means resting in the knowledge that His love is constant, His grace is sufficient, and His promises are true. This kind of trust allows us to let go of the need to have all the answers and to find peace in the uncertainty, knowing that He holds our future in His hands. As we close this part of the message, I want to encourage you to take a moment to reflect on the things that may be holding you back from experiencing joy. Are there fears you need to release, comparisons you need to let go of, or areas of your life where you need to practice gratitude? Bring those things to God, and invite Him to work in your heart. Remember, joy is not something you have to chase, it is something you can receive. It begins with a decision to trust Him, to let His love fill the places where fear once lived, and to embrace the gift of each day with a grateful and open heart. Joy is your inheritance as a child of God. It is a gift that cannot be taken away, and it is waiting for you to embrace it. Let this be the moment when you say yes to joy, and let it transform your life in ways you never thought possible. Joy is an incredible gift that has the power to transform not only our perspective but also the way we live our lives. Yet, it's a gift that often feels elusive, especially when we're surrounded by challenges, uncertainties, and the constant demands of life. For many of us, joy feels like a fleeting emotion, something we might experience in brief moments of happiness or success but rarely something we can sustain. The truth, however, is that joy is not meant to be temporary or conditional. It is not dependent on what is happening around us, it is rooted in what is happening within us. Joy is a fruit of the Spirit, a divine gift that flows from our relationship with God. When we allow Him to calm our fears and fill our hearts with His presence, joy becomes a natural outpouring of that connection. One of the most significant barriers to joy is the weight of fear. Fear keeps us trapped in a cycle of worry, doubt, and anxiety, making it difficult to see beyond our immediate circumstances. It convinces us that we are powerless, that the future is uncertain, and that we must carry the burdens of life on our own. But fear is not meant to define us or dictate how we live. It is a tool the enemy uses to steal our peace and rob us of the joy that God wants us to experience. The good news is that fear loses its power when we bring it into the light of God's truth. When we choose to trust Him, even in the midst of uncertainty, we open the door for His peace to calm our hearts and for His joy to take root. Living in joy requires a shift in focus, a deliberate decision to turn our attention away from fear and toward God's promises. Fear often magnifies what is uncertain or unknown, but joy reminds us of what is true. It calls us to focus on God's faithfulness, His goodness, and His unchanging love. This doesn't mean ignoring the realities of life or pretending that everything is perfect. It means choosing to see those realities through the lens of faith, trusting that God is with us and that He is working all things for our good. Joy is not about denying our struggles, it is about finding hope and strength in the midst of them. It is the confidence that comes from knowing that, no matter what we face, we are never alone. Another key to experiencing joy is understanding its source. The world often tells us that joy comes from external circumstances, success, possessions, relationships, or recognition. While these things may bring temporary happiness, they cannot sustain true joy. True joy comes from a relationship with God. It is the result of being connected to Him, of trusting in His love and His plan for our lives. This is why joy is described as a fruit of the Spirit in Galatians 5 verses 22 to 23. It is not something we can manufacture on our own, it is a byproduct of living in alignment with God's will and walking in His presence. When we prioritize our relationship with Him, we create space for His joy to fill our hearts and overflow into every area of our lives. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools for cultivating joy. When we take time to thank God for His blessings, we shift our focus from what we lack to what we have. Gratitude changes our perspective, helping us to see His hand in every aspect of our lives. It reminds us that, even in difficult times, there is still so much to be thankful for. This practice of gratitude is not just about listing our blessings, it's about acknowledging God's faithfulness and recognizing His presence in the everyday moments. Start by taking a few minutes each day to reflect on what you are grateful for. It could be something as simple as the beauty of nature, the kindness of a friend, or the strength to face another day. As you practice gratitude, you'll begin to notice the ways God is working in your life, and that awareness will deepen your joy. Another important aspect of joy is learning to live in the present moment. Fear often pulls us into the future, filling our minds with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. At the same time, regret and resentment can keep us anchored in the past, replaying mistakes or holding on to hurts. Joy, however, is found in the present. It is experienced in the here and now, in the simple, ordinary moments of life. When we allow ourselves to be fully present, we become more aware of God's presence, and that awareness is the foundation of joy. This doesn't mean ignoring our responsibilities or avoiding difficult emotions, it means choosing to focus on what is good and true in the moment. It means trusting that God is with us and that He is enough for whatever we are facing right now. Comparison is another barrier to joy that we must overcome. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with images of other people's lives, it's easy to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others. We see their successes, their relationships, and their achievements, and we begin to feel inadequate or unworthy. But comparison is a thief of joy. It shifts our focus from our blessings to what we think we lack and creates a sense of dissatisfaction that keeps us from fully embracing the life God has given us. The antidote to comparison is contentment, a deep-seated trust that God has given us exactly what we need for this season of our lives. Contentment is not about settling for less or giving up on our dreams, it is about trusting that God's plan is better than anything we could imagine and choosing to be present and grateful for the here and now. Serving others is another way to cultivate joy. When we focus on meeting the needs of those around us, we take the focus off of ourselves and our own fears. Serving others not only blesses them but also fills our hearts with a sense of purpose and connection that fuels joy. Whether it's through a kind word, a thoughtful gesture, or an act of generosity, serving others reflects the heart of God. It reminds us that we are part of something bigger than ourselves and that our lives have meaning beyond our own desires. Look for opportunities to be a source of joy to those around you, and you'll find that joy multiplies, creating a ripple effect that touches everyone you encounter. Finally, let me remind you of the importance of trust in cultivating joy. Fear often stems from a lack of trust in ourselves, in others, and ultimately in God. When we try to control everything or when we doubt that God's plans are good, we create space for fear and anxiety to grow. But when we choose to trust Him, even when we don't understand, we open the door for joy to enter. Trusting God doesn't mean everything will be easy or that we won't face challenges. It means believing that He is with us in those challenges and that He is working all things for our good. It means resting in the knowledge that His love is constant, His grace is sufficient, and His promises are true. This kind of trust allows us to let go of the need to have all the answers and to find peace in the uncertainty, knowing that He holds our future in His hands. As we close this part of the message, I want to encourage you to reflect on what might be holding you back from experiencing the fullness of joy. Are there fears you need to release, comparisons you need to let go of, or areas of your life where you need to cultivate gratitude? Bring those things to God, and invite Him to work in your heart. Joy is not something you have to chase, it is something you can receive. It begins with a decision to trust Him, to let His love fill the places where fear once lived, and to embrace the gift of each day with a grateful and open heart. Joy is your inheritance as a child of God. It is a gift that cannot be taken away, and it is waiting for you to embrace it. Let this be the moment when you say yes to joy, and let it transform your life in ways you never thought possible. As we draw near the conclusion of this message, it is essential to understand that joy is not simply a fleeting feeling or a temporary response to life's circumstances, it is a powerful, unshakable force that transforms the way we live. Joy is the manifestation of God's presence in our lives, a reflection of His love, and an assurance that, no matter what we face, He is with us and His plans for us are good. To truly experience this joy, we must first let go of the things that weigh us down. Fear, doubt, and anxiety often act as barriers, keeping us from fully embracing the joy that God offers. But when we surrender these burdens to Him, something remarkable happens. We begin to see life through a different lens, a lens of hope, trust, and gratitude. Joy, then, becomes not just an emotion but a choice, a perspective, and a way of life. One of the most profound aspects of joy is its resilience. Unlike happiness, which is often tied to external circumstances, joy is rooted in the eternal truths of God's character and promises. It is a strength that carries us through trials and a light that shines even in the darkest moments. Consider the storms you have faced in your life, the challenges, losses, and uncertainties that threaten to overwhelm you. How often did you find that, in those moments of deepest struggle, there was also an opportunity to experience God's presence in a way that brought peace and comfort? This is the essence of joy. It is not the absence of hardship but the presence of God in the midst of it. Joy does not deny the reality of pain, rather, it transcends it, reminding us that our hope is not in what we can see but in the one who is faithful and unchanging. To live in joy, we must cultivate a heart that is open to God's presence and responsive to His leading. This begins with trust, a trust that God is who He says He is and that His plans for us are good, even when we don't fully understand them. Fear often arises from a lack of trust. It whispers lies that make us question God's faithfulness and doubt His ability to provide for our needs. But trust silences those lies and replaces them with truth. When we trust God, we declare that our confidence is not in our own abilities or in the circumstances around us but in His unchanging character. Trust allows us to release the need to control everything and to rest in the assurance that He is in control. It is in this surrender that joy begins to flourish, for joy is found in the freedom that comes from letting go of our burdens and placing them in God's hands. Another key to experiencing joy is gratitude. Gratitude shifts our focus from what we lack to what we have, from what is wrong to what is right. It reminds us of God's faithfulness and helps us see His blessings, even in the midst of challenges. Gratitude is not just a practice, it is a posture of the heart, a way of living that acknowledges that every good gift comes from God. When we cultivate gratitude, we create space for joy to take root. Start each day by reflecting on the things you are thankful for. They don't have to be big or dramatic, sometimes, it's the smallest blessings that bring the most joy. Maybe it's the warmth of a cup of coffee, the laughter of a loved one, or the beauty of a sunrise. As you practice gratitude, you'll find that your perspective begins to change. You'll start to notice the ways God is working in your life, and that awareness will deepen your joy. Living in joy also requires us to let go of the things that steal it. Comparison is one of the greatest thieves of joy. In a world where we are constantly bombarded with images of other people's lives, it's easy to fall into the trap of comparing ourselves to others. We see their successes, their relationships, and their achievements, and we begin to feel inadequate or unworthy. But comparison is a lie. It shifts our focus from our blessings to what we think we lack and creates a sense of dissatisfaction that keeps us from fully embracing the life God has given us. The antidote to comparison is contentment, a deep-seated trust that God has given us exactly what we need for this season of our lives. Contentment is not about settling for less, it is about recognizing that we are enough because God is enough. When we let go of comparison, we free ourselves to experience the joy that comes from living authentically and gratefully. Community is another important aspect of joy. God created us to live in relationship with one another, and there is a special kind of joy that comes from sharing life with others. Whether it's through deep conversations, shared laughter, or acts of service, community reminds us that we are not alone. It gives us opportunities to encourage, support, and love one another, which not only strengthens our relationships but also fills our hearts with joy. Look for ways to be a source of joy to those around you. It could be as simple as a kind word, a thoughtful gesture, or a listening ear. When we pour into others, we reflect God's love and create a ripple effect of joy that touches everyone we encounter. Finally, joy is deeply connected to purpose. God has created each of us with a unique calling, a purpose that brings meaning to our lives and impacts the world around us. When we align ourselves with His purpose, we experience a sense of fulfillment and joy that cannot be found anywhere else. Fear often tries to keep us from stepping into our purpose. It tells us that we are not capable, that we will fail, or that we are not enough. But when we trust God and take steps of faith, we discover that His strength is made perfect in our weakness. Living in purpose is not about striving for success or recognition, it is about walking in obedience and allowing God to use us for His glory. As we live out our purpose, we experience the joy of knowing that our lives are making a difference and that we are part of something greater than ourselves. As we close this message, I want to encourage you to reflect on the joy that is available to you. Are there fears, doubts, or comparisons that have been holding you back from fully experiencing it? Are there areas of your life where you need to cultivate gratitude or let go of the things that steal your joy? Bring those things to God, and invite Him to work in your heart. Remember, joy is not something you have to chase, it is something you can receive. It begins with a decision to trust Him, to let His love fill the places where fear once lived, and to embrace the gift of each day with a grateful and open heart. Joy is your inheritance as a child of God. It is a gift that cannot be taken away, and it is waiting for you to embrace it. Let this be the moment when you say yes to joy, when you release the burdens that have been weighing you down and step into the freedom, peace, and happiness that God has for you. The world may try to steal your joy, but it cannot touch the joy that comes from knowing you are loved, chosen, and held by the Creator of the universe. Let this truth fill your heart, calm your fears, and transform your life. As you move forward, may you walk in the confidence that God's joy is your strength and that His presence is with you always. Let His joy shine through you, touching the lives of those around you and reflecting the love and hope of Christ to a world in need. As we bring this message to a close, I want you to pause and reflect on everything we've explored together. Fear and joy are two forces that often seem to be at odds, competing for space in our hearts and minds. Fear seeks to paralyze us, to rob us of peace, and to fill us with doubt. It whispers lies about who we are, what we're capable of, and whether we are truly loved. But joy, God's joy, is a gift that breaks through the darkness of fear, reminding us that we are never alone, that we are deeply loved, and that we are called to live in freedom and abundance. This joy is not fleeting, nor is it dependent on our circumstances. It is rooted in the unchanging truth of who God is and the promises He has made. Today, I want to remind you that joy is your inheritance as a child of God. It is not something you have to earn, chase, or manufacture. It is a gift that flows freely when you open your heart to God's presence and trust Him with every aspect of your life. Joy doesn't mean that life will always be easy or that you will never face challenges. Instead, it means that even in the midst of uncertainty, pain, or struggle, you can have an unshakable confidence in God's goodness. It means you can wake up each day with a sense of peace and hope, knowing that His love for you is constant and that His plans for you are good. To truly embrace this joy, we must first release the things that block it. Fear, doubt, comparison, and a lack of gratitude can all act as barriers, keeping us from fully experiencing the joy that God wants to pour into our lives. But when we surrender these burdens to Him, something incredible happens. Our hearts begin to soften, our perspective begins to shift, and we start to see life through the lens of His grace. Joy is not the absence of difficulties but the presence of God in the midst of them. It is the confidence that comes from knowing that no matter what happens, we are held by the One who created us and loves us unconditionally. As you go forward, I encourage you to cultivate joy in your life. Take time each day to practice gratitude, to reflect on God's blessings, and to celebrate the beauty and goodness that surround you. Let go of the things that steal your joy, whether it's fear, envy, or the pressure to measure up to someone else's standards. Instead, focus on the truth of who God says you are, chosen, loved, and worthy. Seek out opportunities to serve others and share joy with those around you. When you pour into others, you not only bless them but also experience the joy of living in alignment with God's heart. Most importantly, trust God with every part of your life. Joy begins with trust, trusting that He is who He says He is, that His plans for you are good, and that He is with you in every moment. When you place your trust in Him, you free yourself from the weight of trying to control everything and open the door for His peace and joy to fill your heart. Remember, joy is not just a feeling, it is a way of life, a reflection of God's presence within you. It is a strength that carries you through trials, a light that shines in the darkest places, and a testimony to the hope and love that are found in Him. As I close, I want to leave you with this: you were not created to live in fear. You were created to walk in freedom, to experience the fullness of joy, and to live a life that reflects God's love to the world. Let this be the moment when you choose to let go of fear and embrace the joy that is already yours in Christ. Trust Him, thank Him, and allow His joy to transform your heart and your life. And as you do, let that joy overflow to those around you, becoming a beacon of hope and light in a world that so desperately needs it. If this message has touched your heart, I invite you to join me in continuing this journey. Subscribe to the Word of God YouTube channel, where we can walk together, grow in faith, and share the joy of God's love. Let's move forward as His chosen ones, living in the freedom and joy that only He can provide.